Coming up in this episode of iCantCU, I'll tell you all about my recent trip to Orlando, travel, and the NFB National Convention. Stick with me.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 267 of iCantCU. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I'm really glad you're here for this episode, and welcome inside Studio B. I'm hoping the lighting is a little bit better. I've got 2 new lights, plus a little bit of light back over there, and hopefully it'll be a little bit better than the last episode. In fact, the last podcast episode I did not do on video because I was in such a rush. I didn't even edit it, if you can believe that. But as I said, I'm just back from the NFB National Convention in Orlando, and it was very busy. Now, before I even get into it, I just want to recognize the NFB of Puerto Rico. I am wearing a shirt that I bought from them. In the exhibit hall, they were right next to us in Pennsylvania, and I spent a lot of time at the exhibit hall table. So if you're listening, my shirt is a very nice blue. In fact, I'd like to get iCantCU podcast shirts in this same color blue. On the front, above the left breast, it has the NFB logo in an outline of, or a silhouette, I guess, of the island of Puerto Rico. And on the back, this is very cool. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to stop talking for a second so you can hear me out, but I'm going to show you and then I'll tell you about it. On the back, it says, Viva la vida que quieres, which means live the life you want. And that is the NFB motto, live the life you want. On the Keystone shirt, it has our logo on the front, and on the back, it has live the life you want. That is the tagline that goes with every NFB logo. And on the shirt, we separated it just like they do. But the cool thing about the back of this shirt is that it has tactile Braille on it. And that is very cool. I'm going to turn around one more time for you watching on YouTube so you can take a look. So below the live the life you want, Viva la vida, which is in a block type of print, and then que quieres is in a script over top of that. Below all of that is the Braille. So I'm going to turn around one more time so you can take a look. And I'm trying to point to the Braille. Sorry, I'm facing the wrong way when I said that. And I was pointing to the Braille. If you could see, I wasn't itching my back. But it is a very nice colored shirt. I actually bought 3 things from Puerto Rico. I also bought a hat that says Viva la vida que quieres on the hat. And it's it's a black hat with that same type of writing. It has the Viva la vida in a block style text, and then que quieres in a script over top on a black hat. Very cool. I wore it when I did the blind baseball, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. I also bought, or I should say Liz also bought some treats from there that they actually made. They were homemade, different types of cookies. One was a meringue, and they had some other types of cookies, which were very good, I have to tell you. So that part was very cool. Bought some other things, bought a shirt from Massachusetts, and even though it was the wrong one, we think we ordered the right one now. They had a shirt they had 2 shirts. And one of them was a silhouette of 3 people in front of the world, with the one silhouette, which was clearly the sighted person in the 3 silhouettes, pointing. And then they had a silhouette of a person with a cane, a white cane. And then they had a silhouette of a person with a guide dog. And the phrase was, where in the world is over there? As I've mentioned a million times, when you say, where is the so-and-so? Like, where's the bathroom? Oh, it's right over there. And then they'll point. Well, when you can't see, it doesn't help when you do that. So I'm hoping to get that shirt in the coming days. Hopefully they have some left. But the one that Liz got me, which I guess they were all mixed together in the same box, was a blind parenting or parenting without looking or something. I don't know exactly what it said. It's obviously appropriate, but it's not the one that I wanted. And both of the shirts are purple. So I'm excited to get the right one. And I'll wear that in an upcoming episode too, if I ever do get that one. So that stuff was very cool. I think that was all the stuff that we bought from other NFB affiliates. We were selling tote bags, which we still have some left. So if you're interested in a White Canes Connect tote bag, has the big White Canes Connect cover art graphic on the back. On the front, it has the NFB of Pennsylvania logo on one side of the pocket. On the other side of the pocket, it has a graphic that says blind at heart. Now, this was a big issue for us because the vendor, the quality control issues from the vendor, we had one bag that when it was, and these were embroidered, by the way, one bag was embroidered with one of the handles inside. So the handle is stuck inside because we didn't want to undo it, because if you undo it, then obviously the embroidery comes off, or however that works. So we didn't sell that one. There was another one that had an issue, but we had a good number to sell. It's a nice big bag. It's got a front pocket that's separated into two spaces, very big pocket, very nice. And Liz and I bought one, and we sold quite a few of them, but we still do have some left. So if you would like one, reach out and I will get it to you. Again, iCantCU podcast@gmail.com. So those are the things we bought from vendors, and we may have bought one or two other things, maybe some food or something. Oh yes, we bought some macadamia nuts from Hawaii. And I think that's it for what we purchased in the exhibit hall. So the way it worked, I was in charge of the exhibit hall table. So I scheduled folks, and people were very excited to work it. And it was so awesome how great everybody did at the table. And I was surprised at how a lot of them were very aggressive to try and sell these bags and the candy bars that we had. We had 3 candy bars from Dan Smith, which is a candy company, a chocolate company out in Western PA near State College. And then we had 2 candy bars from Saris, which I've mentioned Saris before because we've done other fundraisers with them. And the 2 candy bars, we had a dark chocolate and we had a milk chocolate with Crispies in it, kind of like a crunch bar. So we sold those. We sold most of the candy bars that we had. Now, the candy bars were a pain in the neck for our president, Lynn Heights, who drove to the convention because every night when they got to their hotel, they couldn't leave the candy bars in the car. So they had to cart them all inside and then cart them all back out the next day so they didn't melt. But those were nice sellers. And we were talking about next year what we might want to sell. And one of the things that nobody had this year were hoodies. And it is freezing in the hotel. It was absolutely freezing. It was real feels outside were in the low 100s, 100 to 105. It was in Orlando in the summer. What do you expect? And that's why the NFB usually picks southern states, because we usually get better rates because it's so hot. Last year was Houston. Next year is New Orleans. Then after New Orleans, 2 years in a row, we go to Austin, but then we're going to Chicago for 2 years after the 2 years after that. So it was strange that they did the next 5 years. And Lisa said to me, she said, we should try and get the NFB of Puerto Rico to have the convention, to host the convention, because that would be awesome to go there. So maybe in 6 years, maybe we'll go to Puerto Rico. That would be very cool. But it was awesome to be next to those folks. They were very lively. And in fact, one of their students won the main scholarship and they went nuts at the banquet. It was just fun to be near them. And it was very enjoyable. And hopefully, I talked to one of the folks who is the treasurer. We're hoping to have them on an episode of White Canes Connect. She told me we're going to have to speak slowly because English isn't their main language. And so we'll hopefully have them in the coming weeks, have them on White Canes Connect to talk about their shirts and where they got the Braille printed on them and how they did that. So looking forward to that. So that was my main thing. So basically, when the exhibit hall was open, Liz was in there. Liz went down with me, but she came back a couple days early. And so that the traveling down was a lot easier because we were able to use the kiosk inside the airport terminal because obviously Liz could see it, and it's not accessible. So we did that, no trouble flying or anything, and shared an Uber over to the hotel with Harriet and Lisa, who were on our same flight. And it was very cool. When we got off the plane, Liz noticed somebody that she recognized. I didn't, of course, recognize, but it was one of the guys from the NFB of Maryland who last year, I guess it was summer of 23, I kind of hosted them and we took them around. We went to the Franklin Institute. We went to the Liberty Bell. We went to the Constitution Center. We went and got cheesesteaks from, I think it was called Del Campo's or Campos, right down the street from Independence Mall. And it was a nice afternoon, or I guess it was a nice day. I spent most of the day with them, showing them around the historic area of Philadelphia, as well as the Franklin Institute. And Liz stayed with us at the Franklin Institute, and she was our audio describer because they don't offer anything like that there. But it was cool that they allowed Liz in to do that, and I don't think they charged us for her. But that was a lot of fun that day. But so Liz noticed Greg and went over and said hello. I went over and said hello. And that was very cool. And we ran into him one or two more times. Not literally. I'll talk about that in a few minutes too. But the convention for the most part was very busy and very hectic between working the exhibit hall table. And I was there for the most part when I wasn't in the NFB National Board meeting. And there might have been another time or two where I wasn't at the table. The last day of the exhibit hall, there was a session from 5 to 9 at the exhibit hall, which I didn't do because I went to Don't Look Now screening. It was called a VIP screening, and I felt very important, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But it was, I would say, fairly successful. I know we made money at the table, which is good. Could we have made more? Yes. If we had something else other than the tote bags, probably. But our cost on the tote bags was something that we were supposed to have some printed ones. We were supposed to have some embroidered ones. The vendor couldn't print on the same bags as they embroidered on. So it was a smaller bag, and the vendor just couldn't get it right. And in fact, the vendor was at the event and was actually trying to print from our hotel room, which created an issue because the smell and the whatever it was, I mean, my eyes were burning. It was a whole thing. It was just a whole thing. And that was the first couple of days. It was just nonstop with that, and nonstop with making sure folks showed up at the table, and somebody would say, hey, I can't work this shift because I'm supposed to be here. And it was just constantly changing, and it was just busy. Let's just put it that way. And then there were other days that I was busy once that was done, doing some other things. It was just very hectic, and I need a vacation, honestly, after being down there. But we were able to get to see Dan, and he listens, and hello, Dan. And it was great to get to see him. We ate at a place at Disney Springs called the Edison, which was very good. And I was actually surprised at the price from there for the three of us. Now, we only got burgers. Liz, Dan, and I only got burgers there, but it wasn't very expensive for what I thought it would be down there. Some of the other places were expensive. The hotel was fairly expensive. The drink prices were crazy. Margaritas were like $20. Not that I had one, but I know friends had them. Lisa had one. Some other folks from some of the other chapters within the NFB of PA. So I knew that they were around $20. When I was out with Brian Fischler, he had a couple of drinks, and it was crazy. He came back with 2 drinks so he wouldn't have to go back, and it was over $40. Now, they weren't margaritas. I forget what they were. Bombay something and something. I don't remember. But it was something that he liked, and that's what he got. So all in all, it was very, very busy. And Liz did so much work at the table. I wouldn't have been able to do it all myself. And it was great that she was there. We had trouble. We used Square to do credit card transactions, and that was an issue because we had connectivity issues getting on the Wi-Fi. So it was there was just always something. And I was able to get to a few tables at the exhibit hall that I wanted to. One was called Patriot Vision, which I had seen on The Blind Life. Sam Seavey had demonstrated these. And again, I forget the title, just like I did when I was there. And we're hoping to have them on White Canes Connect also. A lot of people I met down there that hopefully in the coming weeks and months we'll have on White Canes Connect. But all in all, it was a great conference. there were some good points and some bad points. Again, very busy, and just always seemed like there was something. When I woke up every day, I said, what's going to go wrong today? It wasn't like, hey, it's a great day, I can't wait to get down there, because I knew something was going to go wrong, or there was going to be something that had to be fixed. And I'm pretty flexible with stuff like that. And I've always been flexible with stuff because in business, that's what has to happen. You have to be flexible and you have to be able to maneuver around obstacles because they're always there. They're always there in a business. And I tried to do it, and hopefully I did it. There was an issue with banquet tickets. It took me a while to get everybody's ticket. And so the way it works, everybody gets, if you buy one, you get a banquet ticket when you pick up all your credentials, your badge, and everything else. You then can take that banquet ticket to Banquet Exchange. What Banquet Exchange is you get everybody's ticket who you want to sit with. And in our case, the whole NFB of Pennsylvania, we all try to sit together. Now, again, there's only 10 seats per table. So there was, I think, 36 or 37 of us who went to the banquet. And the banquet is the final thing of the convention. After the banquet, convention is done. And the banquet is important because that's when the president of the organization, in this case, Mark Riccobono, gives a speech, talks about one thing or another. And there's some other things that go on. The different scholarship winners are announced with the actual scholarships that they won. Every scholarship winner gets the same amount, which it used to be different. And I don't know why they changed it, but I get it. Everybody gets $8,000. Great. It used to be some got 3, some got 5, some got 10, 1 or 2 got more. And they changed that a few years ago. They announced that. They checked in with a couple of different parties where people had guests over their house to do a watch party for the banquet so they could all listen to the speech and everything else together. So I finally got everybody's banquet tickets, so I have to go to Banquet Exchange with these tickets. And then I sat down with the president, Lynn Heights of the NFB of PA, and we went and we put people at tables. And it's kind of like Tetris, because you might have 11 people that want to sit at one table. So you got to figure, okay, you don't want to split up mother and daughter or siblings or whatever it might be. So you have to figure, okay, who's that one? What table are we going to put that one at? And well, as I got the tickets, when I got the original tickets from everybody, the Greater Philly chapter gave me an envelope, which I didn't count. They handed me an envelope. I was told there were 20 tickets in there, but there was only 19 tickets in there. And as everybody else gave me their tickets, I kept a list on my phone in notes, so I knew who gave me a ticket. Well, on the last day that I was collecting the tickets, somebody gave me a ticket, and then I thought that other person who was standing in front of me at the same time also gave me a ticket. So I marked him down for a ticket as well. And that person didn't give me a ticket. And so there was an issue with one person from Greater Philly was shorted. That ended up being Eugenio because he was going to be the one to sit it out. And I felt horrible. After I realized my mistake, I felt horrible. Eugenio was a friend. We roomed together at Washington Seminar. I hope he still wants to room with me next year at Washington Seminar. But I messed up. And we were racking our brains. Liz was trying to help out looking at the people who registered. The problem is you could also register once on site. Registration closed at the end of May, but you could still register once you got to Orlando. And there were a few people that did that. I want to say 5 or 6. So it was my mistake. It was just, I wrote it down. I thought that one person had given me a ticket and he didn't. And that's where the mistake was, because I never counted. I should have counted the Greater Philly envelope. And now I know for next time, count all of them on the spot, because then I would know, hey, there are X number of tickets in here. That's great. So once that was trouble for, I don't remember what day that was, Monday, I guess. Nope, Sunday. It was just something every day, like I said. And I felt terrible. I'm sitting there in general sessions, which is during general sessions, companies give speeches. They have people come up and give speeches. They announced the Balatin Awards, which Lisa and I from White Canes Connect did not win. And we thought, oh, well, they're not going to give it to a podcast. They ended up giving it to another podcast, granted, a much more popular podcast, Jonathan Mosen's Live Blindfully or something like that. And we were a little disappointed at that. I don't know if he is a member of the NFB. He's certainly big in the blindness community. But we were disappointed that a podcast did win, but it wasn't ours. And again, probably has millions of downloads. We have thousands of downloads. So it is what it is. We'll work around that. And my goal for that is to get sponsors and to get other contributors and to, once the website is up, which hopefully by the end of July it should be up, is to have some merch additional to the bags, the embroidered bags. And we will not use that vendor again. That vendor is done. It just won't happen because the quality was spotty. Like I said, we gave a couple back and there were still a couple of issues with a couple other bags and didn't give us the printed bags, which we would have sold for a less amount than the embroidered bags. It was just I guess it was a learning experience for all of us. And because I was on one of the people that said, okay, let's do it, I'm at least partially to blame. But hopefully next year, we talked about it a little bit. Hopefully next year, we're going to have some chocolate covered pretzels, maybe some Hers potato chips. And the good thing about the Hers potato chips, they can sit in the rooftop box that goes on Lynn and Ray's car, and they won't have to be brought in every day because they're potato chips. Obviously, there won't be any chocolate in there. We also Liz suggested, because it was so cold in the hotel and people were always bringing blankets or sweaters or whatnot, but some people didn't. We thought a zip-up hoodie would be easy to put on and, might be something to sell. I thought if we did a hoodie, yes, putting the NFB logo on it, but maybe not the NFB of Pennsylvania logo on, and maybe a graphic that says something about NFB National Convention, New Orleans, and have some iconic graphic from New Orleans, whether it's a streetcar, whether it's whatever. We'll come up with something. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, we have 11 and a half months before we have to figure it out. Maybe a little less than that because we'll have to get them made. But we're going to look around for that. I'll try to get pricing because, again, I think it's a great idea. And I certainly would have bought one because I did bring an iCantCU hoodie, but I never put it on because it's awkward to put on because you got to pull it over and then you got to take it off when you get hot and back and forth. A zip up one obviously would be better. And maybe we'll do something other than a hoodie, maybe some sort of fleece zip, whatever. We'll find something. So everything at the convention otherwise was nice. It was nice to see everybody from the NFB of Pennsylvania. I got to meet a few people who I've either emailed with and or talked to, but never met them face to face. I met some people that I didn't know. In fact, I met Lynn for breakfast one day and she was talking to a lady and I said hello and I chimed in with something and she said, "Oh, I thought I knew that voice, David. It's nice to see you." And when she left, I said, "Lynn, who is that?" And she told me her name. I said, "I never met her before, so I don't know how she knows me. She must listen to White Canes Connect because I'm pretty sure she probably doesn't listen to this. But she might. I don't know. She's from Missouri. And she's a new board member of the NFB National, so the national board. We had a Keystone chapter dinner on the 4th of July. And what's funny about that, Harriet was able to get, I don't know how, she was able to get a reservation on the 4th of July at a Mexican place. And Liz told me the name of the chef who owns it, Rick Baylor, something like that. It's a Mexican place at Disney Springs. So we were at Disney Springs on the 2nd and on the 4th. The funny thing about going to the Mexican place on the 4th, last year in Houston, on the 4th of July, they had a mariachi band. And of course, we're at a Mexican restaurant. They had a mariachi band. So I think that's the new tradition for the 4th of July, a mariachi band. I got to go. So next year in New Orleans, it's not going to be during 4th of July. So I'm going to have to find some place that has a mariachi band here in the Philadelphia area. So if you have any ideas, let me know. The only Mexican place that we usually go to is Mexican Post down in North Delaware. And I've never seen a band there. So we'll have to find something for 4th of July. But it was nice to get together with the Keystone chapter folks. I think there were 10 or 11 of us. I don't remember. And it was good to be with them. Now, the problem was the mariachi band was playing. The restaurant was loud for a good portion of it. And it was hard to hear from one end of the table to the other. So Liz was on my right. She initially started out on my left, but she and I switched. I forget why. I was sitting next to Maria, who is Simon Bonenfant's mom, and then Simon was down one end, Kenny was down the other end, and then across the table was Harriet and Lisa and Kosi and Angie, and I think I'm missing somebody. Maybe not. But it was nice to get together with them. And then we walked around Disney Springs, which I looked for a tie because I forgot a tie. Fortunately, the hotel shop, gift shop had ties, so I bought one there. I did not like it. I did not like the tie. In fact, let me tell you about that. So Liz and I looked in the door and she couldn't see Ty. So I went back. I had some time before I went to a screening of Don't Look Now, which I'll talk about again in a couple of minutes. When I went in there, there was a woman who was the shop owner or the worker, whatever, who was helping another lady. And when she was done, she came over to me, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking, do you guys carry ties?" Some other guy who I didn't know was even there, didn't see him, said, hey, I've been waiting. Okay, well, I didn't know. I'm sorry. And I don't know if he didn't notice my cane. He was cited for sure, because I think he later felt bad and helped me pick the tie. And maybe he picked the tie he did because he wanted to get back at me. It was a pink tie with gray dots, he told me. And I had a blue shirt on. I just didn't like the combination. He said, "Oh, it'll look very Florida-y." I said, "Okay." And I took it. I needed a tie. Disappointed that I took it. There was another one that I was looking at. I think it was gray with some kind of dots on. I don't remember what he said, but I took that one. Whatever. It's done. And I'll put a picture up. I took a picture to send to Liz and Jane. So by that time, Liz was gone. Liz stayed until Saturday. She flew out Saturday. No trouble getting home. She got to meet Brian Fischler, which Brian was hoping to do. So we met Brian Fischler, and Brian McCarthy came over to our hotel they had drinks. I had iced tea, and I don't think Liz had anything. And I don't remember. Brian McCarthy doesn't drink. I don't think he had anything either. If he did, he had water or something. Brian McCarthy is also one of the actors from Don't Look Now. He's also usually the MC of the last few Laugh for Sights. And it was great to meet him because I've seen him a few times at Laugh for Sight, and obviously Brian Fischler always talks about him. And so it was good to meet him. And I saw him again the next day or 2 days later when I went to the screening for Don't Look Now. As we were sitting there, so Brian McCarthy left. He had something else going on. And then Liz went up to go to bed because she was leaving the next day and she was already exhausted. And it was well past her bedtime. So Brian and I were sitting there, Brian Fischler and I, and somebody walks by and he says, "Hey, Brian, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Who's that?" And it turned out it was the director from Don't Look Now and a couple of the other cast members. One of them is Olga, which later on, after the screening, the next day, I realized that I had some interaction with her years ago, long before COVID. She used to do, and she has a YouTube channel, and I don't remember what it's called. If I can find it, I will link to it. All sorts of things that blind people probably shouldn't do. She drove a tractor trailer. She was using a chainsaw on something. I don't remember exactly what she was doing. She did all sorts of things like that to show, hey, blind people can do this stuff. And I got to talk to her because I got to the screening so early. So we talked for a while before the screening, and she was telling me she lives in Australia. She's originally from Ukraine, Brian Fischler showed up with Brian McCarthy and talked to them for a little bit. And then they gave us a snack pack after, after Brian and I had gone and Brian treated me to a soda. And thank God he got mediums, because the medium soda at the Regal there at, I think it was called Regal Point. The sodas were huge for mediums. And what was even bigger than the soda was the price tag. They were about $9 each. When the girl told Brian it was like $17.87 or something like that, I said, how much was that? And he said $17.87. I said, I thought I heard that, but I just couldn't believe it was that much. Well, had we waited till we got the snack packs from the producers, we could have gotten a small soda, a reasonably sized soda. It was small, probably 16 ounces. That was the first soda I drank probably in 2 years. But I was so thirsty and they didn't have iced tea. Iced tea seems to be an issue sometimes with these places. Couldn't get it at the bar the last night there. I mean, crazy. It was just crazy. So we saw the screening of the show, and hopefully it gets picked up by whatever, Netflix, Apple TV. Again, it's called Don't Look Now. I don't know. I think there's a trailer out there. Brian had sent me a trailer or a sizzle reel. It's about a minute long, and it shows it. It's a dark comedy. It's a sitcom, and it takes place in the fictitious Visually Impaired School of Arizona, or VISA, which is a joke on itself because it is. After the screening, we went back to one of the hotels. Wasn't my hotel. We had pizza. The producers bought some pizza, and we had pizza, and we were sitting in the bar area having that and some drinks. Again, I had iced tea, but not unsweetened iced tea. It was an Arnold Palmer from one of the companies. I'm guessing Snapple. And just hung out. Then Brian was going to interview some of the folks, and they couldn't find a place to record. They didn't want to do it in a hotel room because there weren't enough places to sit. They didn't want to do it sitting on the bed and whatnot. So they didn't record, but we got to hang out. I was looking for a place to record with the Michael, the guy who plays CJ in the show, and I opened the door because it sounded quiet. It was quiet because there was a yoga class going on at 10 o'clock at night. And I opened the door, and he has sight, so he's looking in. He said, and the people looked up at us. And he said, oh, it's full. And I said, it is? He thought it was hysterical. And he said, can I tell that story? I said, of course you can. Why not? So we hung out for a little bit more. By the time everything was said and done, I couldn't walk back through the Sky Bridge to my hotel because that closes at 11. So we all got Ubers. Other than the people who were at that hotel, I got an Uber back to my hotel. Brian got one back to his hotel, and I can't remember his name. He's also in the show. He's also a stand-up comic. So he and Brian talked for a bit. He got an Uber back to his hotel and wasn't staying at either of our hotels. So none of us could share. So that was a lot of fun hanging out with them and listening and hearing all the stuff about the show and about the stand-up comedy, how Brian and I wish I could remember his name, who's in the show, how they were talking. I believe he was from LA, so he performs out west, and they were talking about the Comedy Store and the Improv and some other places and the people that they knew, and they knew a lot of the same people. So that was very cool. And it was fun to be around that. In fact, when I came home yesterday, I was in the lobby waiting for the Uber, or actually waiting for people, and I'll tell you this story in a minute. And somebody comes up to me and said, hey, Dave, how are you? It's Dave, right? And it happened to be the director and Olga walking by. I guess they were checking out, and they were at the other hotel, so I'm not sure why they were there. I don't know if they had to move hotels or what, but he said hello, and we said a couple of things, and he went over to check out, and I went out front to get the Uber because the night before I found out a few folks from the NFB of PA were on the same flight to Philly from Orlando. And I said, why don't we go together? And he said, well, I have to go with a couple others. I said, okay, well, if you can't fit me, that's fine. No, I'll text her. And she texted this person And when that person came down, they said, "Oh, our car's here." And I said, "Oh, can I fit?" "No, it's a Prius." And then Michelle said, "Could we all fit, the three of them?" And evidently they did. But I ended up ordering my own, and I did order the Uber, I guess, not Lyft. I got this guy named Dave, and he was awesome. And we were chit-chatting. Because of the hurricane, a lot of flights were canceled or delayed. And so that morning I was listening to 1010 Wins on the Odyssey app. And even when you listen wherever you are, there's local commercials put in there. I heard a commercial for Gator World. And I thought, oh, my flight gets canceled and I'm here another day. I'm going to Gator World. And as we're driving to the airport, I said to Dave, the Uber driver, I said, "How far is Gator World from here?" He said, "Oh, about 12 minutes. I said, "Oh, I was going to go there if the flight got canceled." And I wasn't sure that even when I got to the airport, if it would be canceled, but it wasn't. And we were only delayed by a little bit. But coming home, I felt like royalty. I was traveling by myself. And when we pulled up to the curb, Dave said, "Well, you can check your bag right here if you want to check it at the curb." And I know that there's usually a fee for that. And I said, "You know what? Screw it. I know that I can't use that kiosk. And I don't know what kind of mayhem is going to go on for me to try and get somebody to help me with that." So I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay the money. I didn't know how much. But I stood in that line and I waited. And then James helped me. James is the guy behind the desk. And he said, "It's $3. Do you want to check it here? Do you want to go inside?" I said, "No, I'll check it here." I said, "How much?" He said, $3. I said, "Is that it?" And he said, "Well, I work on tips." I said, "Okay." So I figured, okay, I have a 5. I'm going to give him a 5 and hopefully that's enough. Well, I didn't pay him enough. I mean, he thought it was okay, but he does my bag and, I hand him my ID and everything. And he said, "Do you need help inside?" I said, "No." I said, "Just tell me how to get to TSA." And he said, "I'll take you." So he takes me. He said, "Grab my arm." He didn't grab me. And that was one of the big things that we talked about all throughout the convention, whether it was other folks in the NFB, President Riccobono during his speech. That's typically what happens. Somebody will grab you and they will move you around. Sometimes they grab both of your shoulders and just move you like you're nothing. Other times they'll just grab your arm and drag you one way or another. But he asked, he said, "Do you want to grab my arm?" I said, "Yes." And I appreciate you for asking and not just grabbing me. That was great. So he led me in and he led me over to TSA and he said, "Just keep going straight and you're good." I said, "James, I really appreciate it." And he said, "In previous years, younger me would have said, find your way on your own. But for $1 or a couple of bucks a bag, I'm happy to help because it gives me more satisfaction now that I'm older." And I'm guessing he was an older guy and maybe retired from whatever he did as a career before that, but he was awesome. So I start winding my way through the TSA line. It wasn't full. So it was like when you get to the end of the line at a ride and you can still move up, and I'm zigzagging through. And I get to one spot and the guy calls me. He said, "Hey, come over here." And it was a TSA guy. And he pulls the gate and opens so I don't have to go stand in the long line. I said, "Okay, great." And I didn't know where he's going to take me. And I started to turn. He said, No, we're going to keep going straight. I'm going to open this one too. So he opens another one. And then he passes me off to Genesis, was her name. And she said, "Do you want to grab my arm?" I said, "I'm okay as long as you make noise." I said, "When we go to the supermarket, I hope my wife gets one of those carts with the squeaky wheel so I can follow her. It's very easy. Nobody wants that cart, but I love those." And we were talking about other things and she took me up. She said, "Okay, you just need to go straight ahead and you're in the line." I said, "Okay, great." As I'm in the line, I get a text from Michelle. And she said, "How did you get in front of us? We were here before you." and I told her the story. And I probably was about 20 minutes ahead of her. Before James let me into the line, he said, "Once you go through TSA, go to your left and go all the way down. That's the monorail you want to take." Because in Orlando, the main airport check-in is not at the terminal. You have to take a monorail from that to the different terminals. And I realized, after I get through TSA, which was bing, bang, boom, I hang the left like he told me. And I take my phone out because I'm not 100% sure. I want to make sure when I get on the monorail, it's the right one. So I have it out and I'm holding it in front of my chest. I'm probably just under my chin because I wanted to hear it. It was noisy in there. There was obviously the end of 4th of July weekend. I guess it was past 4th of July weekend, but it was still pretty busy. And because of the hurricane and whatnot, people are scrambling everywhere. It was worse in Philly, but I'll get to that in a minute. So I hear gates 1 to 29. Now I had to go to gate 50. So I knew that wasn't it because I initially was going to get on that. And I said, wait a minute, James said go all the way down. So I continued down and I hear other things being read by Seeing AI. And finally I hear gates 50 to, I don't remember if it was 59. No, I'm sorry, 30 through whatever, 59. And I'm like, oh, that's it. And I just verified with the sign and I walked down, I got on. And once I got off, I kind of just followed the people and I go into, and I thought this was great. I thought it was very, very easy. It is a circular building. So there are shops and restaurants in this circular building and giant numbers that I couldn't read on my own, but Seeing AI picked up. It had a big, again, I don't remember the first gate, to 49. And then it said 50 to, I don't know if it said 50 plus or 50 dash something, but I knew that I had to go down that hallway. That was the hallway. And I said, okay, now let's see if I can find a bathroom on the way. And I no sooner started to walk down that hallway to the gate that I heard a blower going. And I said, oh, I hear it. And I moved my phone to, it was on my left. I held my phone to the left and I hear women. And then I'm thinking, okay, the next one's got to be men. And it was. And I went in, I did what I needed to and washed my hands because I hate having, they swab your hands to make sure you haven't played with explosives or anything like that, which I didn't. And I go down the hallway, now trying to find gate 50. Well, I originally walked past it. I see a long line on the right. And I couldn't tell what it was. I didn't know if it was a gate or for a restaurant. I walked a little bit further and there was some folks standing in line. I said, what gate is this? And they said, whatever it was, 54, I think. Oh no, you got to go back. I said, okay. And I went back and then I went, as I'm standing there looking, the long line was there and somebody from the line said, hey, what gate are you looking for? I said, 50. He said, oh, it's directly behind you. I said, okay, great. Thank you. I went over there, stood there for the next, I don't know, hour or so. And then I got on when it was time to get on. And again, when I got on, the person who was working the desk, the gate agent, actually led me down. And she said, do you want to grab my arm? I said, oh, great. Thank you. And again, you're the second person today that asked me. I really appreciate you asking and not just grabbing me and dragging me. And so I was in the queue behind a few folks in wheelchairs. And she said, I'll take you down to the plane. I said, you know what? You can stop at the desk. Once I'm on the jetway, I should be okay. And got on the jetway, and they were not as helpful on the plane. But I got to the seat. I was able to find it. And then I happened to run into Michelle, who was helping someone in a wheelchair get on. So she was the row behind me on the other side. And it was bing, bang, boom. I was good to go and easy flight. It wasn't terrible. Now, the gate agent had told me they were doing a rush job to clean it up, but it was taking a while. So she went down to check on the plane. And it turns out that they had someone on that plane that was doing a Make-A-Wish trip. And so the pilot took her into the cockpit to show her the cockpit. And she got to meet the co-pilot. And the gate agent said she was sorry that she bothered them because it was something that obviously with Make-A-Wish, it's not an easy thing. And I'm guessing the kid would pick to go to Disney. And that was the reason for a delay. But because of the hurricane, so many people were switching flights and trying to get to connecting flights. And it was just nuts. There was one guy I heard who was, I don't know if he was trying to get to Charlotte or if he had to make a connecting flight to Charlotte. I don't remember, but he had a ticket on a plane somewhere. And he didn't know if he should trade it in to go on this flight to make a connecting flight to go where he was going. And because it took so long for everybody to get off, he decided to stay on the flight to Charlotte. And the funny thing was they were cleaning the plane I mean, it landed. I don't think it was on the ground, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And then we got on, and they did such a rush job. It was pretty funny that I saw it on the other end. When we landed in Philadelphia, they made an announcement. If you are not trying to make a connecting flight that's very close, please don't get up and get in the aisle to get your stuff down. There's a lot of folks that are rushing to make connections. Please let those folks make the connections, and then you can get off. And at one point, a lady came and said, "Do you need help?" One of the flight attendants. And I said, "No, I'm home. It doesn't matter." And as everybody was getting off, after the main, I guess most of the folks had gotten off, not all, probably about 75%, the ones who had to rush to the connections and whatnot. I started to get up, and I see all these people in these orange vests. And I said, "Oh my God, are you guys cleaning the plane right now?" And the guy said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm sorry I'm taking so long. I'm also sorry for the crumbs I left for you over here." And he laughed, and we talked a little bit. And then I got up and got off. And when I walked off the jetway, it was just a zoo in the terminal. And I was so surprised at how busy it was. Again, a lot of flights had been canceled. And the problem we found out when we got hosed going to Vegas back in 2019, even though maybe your flight wasn't coming from or going to where the hurricane was, flight disruptions stopped the plane from getting from point A to point B. So it's not there for you to take. And I guess that was the big issue, not just because of the hurricane, but flights were delayed or canceled. And so the equipment wasn't where it needed to be, or the crew wasn't where it needed to be. So I got into the terminal. I had texted Liz from the plane. I said, "I'm just waiting to get off, but I'm letting everybody else get off because I didn't want to mess somebody up from missing a connection." And I told her I'd text her from in the terminal. It was so busy in the terminal. Like I said, I walked maybe about 100 yards till I found an empty spot, and I moved to the side of the aisle. And I texted Liz. I said, "I'm off. I'm in the terminal. If you want to leave now." She left now. So because she left and I was making my way to baggage claim, I thought, how am I going to get my bag? Because I may notice it, I may not. It's a blue bag, and it's got this bright pink glittery luggage tag on it. But the problem is the luggage tag was put on the bottom side, so the bag was covering it. So I didn't recognize the bag. So I FaceTimed Jane, who happened to be out getting lunch up in New York. And I said, "Janie, do you have a second?" I said, you gotta help me find my bag. And the bag went by, and she said, "That looks like it." I said, "No, but I don't see the pink. Do you see the pink luggage?" And I'm waving my phone around. She's like, "No, I don't see it." I said, "Okay." So I'm walking around. She says, "Stay in one place. Stop walking around." I said, I can't stay in one place. So I walked around, and that same bag came up. She said, "Dad, I think that's it." I said, "All right, let me feel for the luggage tag." And I picked it up, and the luggage tag came out from underneath, and it was bright, glittery, and even I could see it. And so that was it. So what I'm going to do now is try and get a big iCantCU logo to put on each side of the bag. So then when I do see it next time, wherever I go next on a plane, I'll know it's mine. I have on the little carry-on bag, I have that. It's a little label. But it was a very tiring trip. I was glad to get home. Ziggy was so happy to see me. It was so awesome the way he greeted me. And he was very happy, and we played for a bit, and then he went and laid down. And then later last night, he was making some noises. He wanted me to hide a box. And if I haven't told you, every morning after I eat breakfast, I go and I grab a box. Usually we save tissue boxes and boxes. Today, the box that we played with was from Jane's contact solution. It was Resolve or whatever, which was a great box, by the way. And I hide it somewhere in the kitchen, not on the kitchen table, not on the kitchen countertops, because we don't want them getting up on there. So we don't want to let them know that, hey, that box is up there. So I hide it. Sometimes I put it on the doorknob. Sometimes it's a box that I can put on one of the cabinet pulls. Sometimes I hide it behind a table leg in the kitchen. Today, I hid it in between a table leg and the drying rack for the dishes, and he found it pretty quick. He's usually pretty good at that. And so he loves doing that. So he was making noises yesterday for that. And then last night, we didn't take him for a walk. Liz didn't take him for a walk because it was so hot. So I played with him, and he likes, he nips at me and stuff like that. Again, probably stuff I shouldn't do with him. And hopefully he only nips at me and grabs onto my hands and stuff like that. But he had a lot of fun. He was happy. And that was my day, and that was my trip. And it was, again, exhausting. It was exhausting. And Liz and I ate at the same Harry's, it was called Harry's Poolside Grill or something like that. Harry's Poolside Bar and Grill, whatever. But we ate there like 4 meals in a row, lunch and dinner, lunch. I don't think we had dinner it was crazy. I mean, they would laugh when the same waitress would see us, or the girl that sat us would see us. I went in there the first day while Liz was laying down to get an iced tea. And it was very cool though. There was a Publix, which is a supermarket chain in Florida. There was a Publix close by. So we took an Uber. We got some berries, and we got a couple of cases of water for one of the folks who needed it. I got an iced tea, which I now realize I left in the fridge. It was like a quart or something like that. And I had most of it gone, but I should have taken it out and spilled out what was left. And we got bananas. We don't usually buy bananas here because Ziggy loves them so much, and we don't want to eat them in front of him because we think that's torture. So it was nice to have bananas. It was awesome. And it was great that we had a fridge in the room, not one of those fridges with, when you take the bottle of alcohol out, it automatically charges you even if you put it back. So it was awesome to have that fridge. Hotel was pretty nice. Wasn't great, but it was nice and it was comfortable. It was freezing, like I said. So hopefully next year we do zip up hoodies. And I'm going to obviously contact some folks. I did get to meet some folks. I wish I could have met more. There was other people I wanted to meet face to face, but I didn't. Traveling was great. I can't wait to go someplace else. I don't think Liz will ever go away again, although she said she's going to go to New Orleans. She wants to go to New Orleans. So the problem is next year it's not over 4th of July. So we got to make sure that Jane can come home and work from home for that week or so while Liz is there. It doesn't make sense for Liz to stay when we have general sessions, because why would she sit in there for that? But hopefully next year she'll go. Maybe she'll stay during the whole time exhibit hall hours are. And that would be a little less stress on me. But it was, I'm not going to lie, it was a little stressful doing that. But it was also fun. It kind of felt like I was in business again. And as I said, I think I said it on that Real Blind Tech show. It was like being in retail again, which I said I never wanted to do, having employees again, which I said I never wanted to have again. And these are employees, quote unquote, that are volunteers. Nobody's getting paid. I'm a volunteer. Everybody's a volunteer. You can't say, oh, you didn't show up or you were late or blah, blah, blah. You can't, because these people are giving of their time. You can't freak out on them. You're not paying them a paycheck. They're doing it because they want to help the affiliate out. And so it was great though, the way everybody helped out, and the way everybody was so great at getting folks to come to the table. It was just, that part was awesome. And it was great to see that. And again, it was difficult, the whole convention, always busy during resolutions, which is, there were 22 of them this year. The resolutions they vote up or down. And most of them, again, there were 22. I want to say for 18 of them, the voice vote carried. Everybody approved. Everybody that's for it say aye. Everybody said aye. And then before they would tell you, here's what it's about. And the resolutions board recommends passing it. So everybody would say aye. But there were 4 that I'm scrambling to get people's votes within the affiliate. There were a couple of very contentious ones that made me a little nervous, and people changed their vote after they heard more about it. It is fun though. It's very fun. That part, it's stressful because I'm trying to get everybody's vote, and I'm keeping them on my hands. Okay, this one's for, this one's against, this one's for, against. And so I'm keeping a mental note and trying to climb over people because we're in rows, theater style rows of maybe 15 or so chairs. And it's just a lot. But again, it's fun to hear. And then they go state by state, each state delegate. And I was the alternate delegate for Pennsylvania. Lynn was the delegate. I then give the numbers that I have, and she counted some on the other side of the rows. So we got the numbers, and I would say, I have this for and this against and whatever you got. And then that's how our vote went. So if we voted, if there were more for, she would say for. If she would say, she would say yes. And if there were more against, she'd say no. So that also stressful, constantly bouncing around. But I am glad to be home, but I am looking forward to going away somewhere. And so many of my friend Alex is currently in Europe, in Austria today. He was in Italy yesterday. Just looking forward to being able to, at some point, to go to Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, along the Mediterranean. I just want to go there so badly. And I don't know how we're going to do it because Liz won't leave Ziggy for a long period of time. And I do not want to bring him along, at least while we're looking. Maybe once we buy a place, then obviously we would take him. But I'm looking forward to that. And I'm hoping that we both don't have COVID, because COVID was going around. I was in the line waiting for tea the one day, and this girl behind me said, "Could you tell me when it's my turn? I'm going to be sitting behind you because I can't stand. I'm dizzy." And she finally moved to a chair. She said, "Would you let me know when I'm up?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she's telling the person behind her, "Yeah, I had a fever last night. I've had this headache. I'm dizzy, blah, blah, blah." And she was a young girl too. She was teens or 20s. And I'm thinking, oh man, this girl has COVID. You stay over there in the chair and I'll come and tell you when it's time. Don't stay near me. But Liz had told me even before I stood in line with this girl that she wasn't feeling well, had sniffles and sneezing and whatnot, as I am now doing. Hopefully it's not COVID. She ordered a couple of COVID tests because we are going to dinner in a couple days with some friends. So we don't want to give it to them if it is COVID. If it's just a cold, we're going. If it's COVID, we won't go. And I also won't go to the Keystone meeting on Saturday. But that was it. It was, like I said, it was good to be away, and it was good to be doing all that. And again, it was stressful, and got to meet the person who was on White Canes Connect the last episode. Her name is Kay. She's secretary of the NFB of Florida. Didn't get to meet Camille, who was also on. It was good to be there, and I wouldn't trade it, even though I'd rather be someplace relaxing or looking for a place to move. But that wasn't that. And it was good to see Dan. All in all, it was a good trip, but again, not a relaxing trip, very exhausting trip. And it was good to see Brian and hang out with him a few days. He was only down there from the 4th to the 7th. Oh, one more thing. I apologize. I didn't tell you about baseball and axe throwing. So I went to the blind baseball, but by the time we got there, and I went over, Michelle McManus from Happy Valley chapter went over with me, we didn't really get a lot of chances to play. I got about 10 swings at a ball. I hit it 3 times or so, 4 times. But it is scary. And I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to demonstrate for those watching on YouTube. You hold the ball in, if you're a lefty, you hold it in your right hand, but I'm a righty. So I'm holding the ball in my left hand. I'm having the bat up in the air behind me like you regularly would. And then as you start to swing, you drop the ball. Hopefully you get the timing right so you don't hit your hand. And so I did that a few times. And then there was I guess you would call it a scrimmage. The blind baseball team from Italy was there. So the U.S. played Italy in a scrimmage. We stayed for a little bit of that. We saw some other practice. And it was cool because we were sitting next to a guy, and I think his name was Gary, who lives in Tribeca with his family. Ira is as I think I told you last time, they describe, they're agents that will tell you what's going on or what to do. They'll look at your bank statement because they're bonded. They're professional describers, I guess you would call them. They called them something else, I forget. But I sat next to Gary. Even though Gary wasn't one of those agents, he was in sales, he was great at describing what was going on the field. It was awesome. He was, again, if the sales thing doesn't work out, he can certainly describe what's going on because he was great. We talked about New York because of Jane, and he was telling me that his kids went to school downtown, and next to Pace, there was a school. So I wondered if that was one of the kids' schools, and it wasn't. So he told me that, and it was nice to sit next to him, but it was a hot day, and Michelle and I were a little disappointed we couldn't do more. But we got there about a half an hour after it started, and we didn't know that there was going to be this scrimmage and all this other stuff. So we decided to leave and go back to the hotel because at the hotel, they were having this sports and rec was doing all these different things. There was rock climbing with one of those walls. There was a bounce house for kids, the axe throwing. There was goal ball, which is a sport which I won't get into now. Maybe at some point we'll have somebody on White Canes Connect talking about goal ball. It's kind of like soccer and basketball, but kind of doing it on the floor with a ball that makes some noise. There was blind tennis, but I didn't see any of that, and I'd be interested in watching that as well. But the axe throwing. So Michelle wanted to do the axe throwing. I wanted to do the axe throwing because I never did it before. And so we got up there. It was awesome. You know, the guy says, okay, put your arm straight out. I have the axe in my hand. Straight out. That's where you want to release it. I said, okay. He said, bring it back. And when you get to that point, release it. Don't release it here. Don't release it here. And I'm making the motion here was above where I needed to release it. The second here was below. And if you release it too high, it'll go over the, it'll go over the wood, which I didn't want to do because I don't know what was on the other side of that wood. I don't want to hit anybody, obviously. In fact, when he said, okay, you can throw, I would bring it back. I said, are you clear? And he said, yes. And then I threw. So two of the three throws, I got it to stick in the wood. The one time it was in the wood, not on the target. It was fine. It was, below the target. But the next time I hit the middle ring. So I couldn't see the ring. I couldn't, I just knew I wanted it to go straight. And that's what I was trying for. And it did, I guess, go fairly straight. But like he said, the middle ring, which he said, I think was 3 points. I don't know how they were numbered. I have no idea. Michelle did it as well. And it was fun. I was glad we did that. It was a well-spent $10. I was glad that we got back in time to do it because it was right near the end and the line was long for it. So a lot of fun. The baseball, like I said, a little disappointing. We couldn't play more. It was good to see Ed Plumacher there. He's part of it's his U.S. Blind Baseball Association is his nonprofit, blindbaseball.org. I set up the landing page for him. At some point, I guess I'm going to be doing the website for him, but you can go over there to read a little bit about it. Again, blindbaseball.org. I'll put the link in the show notes. And I got to meet Mike Walsh face to face. And that's another funny story because Lisa texted me and she said, guess who I'm talking to right now? And then she sent a picture and it was her and Mike Walsh. This was while we were with the vendor trying to make the bags. And I said, oh man, I'm missing him. And I had missed him earlier in the day. I was talking to Ed while he was having breakfast. Oh, Mike's coming down. I said, okay, well, if I'm still in here, I'll come over. Let me know. But I left to do some other things. And so I missed him. And then I missed him when he was with Lisa. And then Liz and I get done trying to work with the vendor. And we go downstairs to Harry's to have dinner. And I said, you know what? I should have gone to the bathroom before we came down. Let me just step into the men's room. I go into the men's room, do my business, come out, drying my hands off. We go to the probably a 2-minute walk and 1-minute walk. We get in line at Harry's to go in to eat. I get a text message from Mike Walsh. And it's a picture. And I said, Liz, who's in this picture with Mike? She said, it's me. I said, you met him before I did? Finally, the next day, I went over to the U.S. Blind Baseball Association table, and he happened to be there. So we met face to face. Then I saw him again when we went to Blind Baseball on the 7th in the evening. And then I talked to him for a good chunk of time on the 8th, on the last day after general sessions had ended. So it was good to talk to him. He's from Flight for Sight, flightforsight.net. I'll put a link in the description. He was telling me that they're thinking about rebranding. We'll see how that goes. And I told him, however I can help you, I'll be happy to help. So again, all in all, it was a lot of work, but good to get away. Even though it was a lot of work, it's good to be together with a lot of friends who, like I said, I don't get to see very often. And that was my trip to Orlando. And it is what it is. Looking forward to New Orleans next year. And I really do appreciate you listening to episode 267 of iCantCU. Reach out on the socials at David Benge on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Threads and YouTube.com/David Benge where you can listen, or you can go to YouTube.com/at iCantCU. 7 letters. Sorry, I put up 3 fingers. 7 letters. And you can watch this episode. Please, if you've got questions, comments, show ideas, please let me know. iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com is the email address, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. Or better yet, reach out via phone, 646-926-6350. You've got up to 3 minutes, and maybe that's why I put up 3 earlier, 3 minutes to leave your name and town and whatever your question, comment, show idea, anything you've got, I'd love to hear from you. Again, 646-926-6350. Show notes, as always, over on the website, which I hope to have a new one in a month or two. Fingers crossed. iCantCU.com/267. That's iCantCU.com/267, numerically speaking. And remember, iCantCU sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 characters long. iCantCU.com/267. Thanks again for listening, watching, viewing. Like and subscribe. Be well, stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.